Hello and welcome to News Across Nigeria. I'm Ayotunde Balogun, and on the program today, Nigeria marks World Press Freedom Day amidst drop in 2017 World Press Freedom Index. Once again, President Muhammadu Buhari is absent at the Federal Executive Council meeting as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo presides over session. And Edo State government steps up reconstruction of internal roads in the state capital, Benin City. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark the Press Freedom Day, the 2017 World Press Freedom Index has placed the country at 122 out of 180 countries. That's down 6 places since last year. This report was put together by non-governmental organization Reporters Without Borders. Although the Freedom of Information Bill was signed into law on May 28, 2011, government institutions and officials are reported to regularly deny journalists information and in some cases threaten them for investigating issues that are in the public interest. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, in the statement says that no society can grow without an active press to monitor and report its activities. He reaffirms the commitment of the National Assembly to continue to enact laws which will create a conducive environment for journalism to thrive in the country. The national celebrations take place each year to commemorate this day, which was first proclaimed by the UN General Assembly in 1993 following a recommendation adopted at the 26th session of UNESCO's General Conference in 1991. Meanwhile, international human rights group Amnesty International is asking the federal government to protect the right to freedom of expression and press freedom in Nigeria. In a statement, the group condemns what it describes as growing intolerance of press freedom, which it says manifests in the arrests of journalists and intimidation of bloggers, as well as excessive use of force in cracking down on peaceful protests by Nigerians. It says that these actions violate international human rights laws and the Nigerian constitution. The statement adds, quote, "These recent draconian trends are sending the wrong signal and force journalists to live in perpetual fear for daring to investigate and report on issues of major public interest. In a human rights respecting society, no one should have the power to harass and intimidate individuals for expressing an opinion." End of quote. The organization also criticized the practice by government institutions and officials of frustrating journalists, sometimes with threats, for investigating stories even under the Freedom of Information Act. It then calls on the Nigerian government to take urgent and concrete steps to assure Nigerians that the country is not slipping into a media clampdown. The presidency has been explaining the absence of the president from the Federal Executive Council meeting today. The Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, told journalists after the council meeting, which was presided over by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, that President Muhammadu Buhari was advised by his doctors to rest. Now, President Buhari was set to have resumed duties yesterday after 3 weeks of absence and even met with the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, and the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Maikanti Baru. There had been growing concerns over the health of the president, prompting some civil society activists and groups to call on the president to take time off from work and attend to his health. Let's now go over to Kaduna State, where the state government has lifted the curfew imposed on 2 local government areas in the southern part of the state, following repeated attacks on the communities by gunmen. The 2 local government areas are Jama and Kaura. Now, the curfew in Zango Kantaf local government area had earlier been suspended. This is coming barely 2 weeks after the Nigerian army launched the Operation Harbin Kunama to flush out bandits and criminal elements in the area. The state government, in a statement, explained that the lifting of the curfew imposed on the 2 councils in December 2016 and early this year was based on the recommendation of the Kaduna State Security Council. Nigeria's efforts to diversify its economy and come out of economic recession largely rests on the nation's ability to overcome the challenges posed by inadequate power supply. A recurrent source of frustration over time has been failed attempts to provide electricity for rural communities where much of the nation's population resides. Our correspondent, Ajuri Ngilale, reports that the federal government appears to have changed that with the inauguration of the Rural Electrification Agency.
Nigeria's rural electrification efforts now rest in the hands of the new leadership of the Rural Electrification Agency.
The qualifications that you have are not in doubt. But those qualifications mean nothing if people do not have access to electricity. Your agency, the Rural Electrification Agency, will become the champion of the unconnected communities. Just remember that. You are their champion from today.
With limited power generation and ailing transmission infrastructure, Nigerians in urban communities across the country are accustomed to seeing their lights flicker on and then off. But in many rural communities, lights don't come on at all, a situation which government officials say will be addressed with a renewed focus on solar energy for a lasting solution.
But obstacles remain. Confronted by persistent vandalism, poor awareness of maintenance requirements by local residents in rural power schemes, and maladministration by past leadership in the subsector, new Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Agency, Damilola Ogumbiyi, sees a way forward.
To go out, identify the status of all these projects and come up with a proper master plan of how we tackle existing projects while also focusing on the new projects that the minister mentioned. The university project is it's a critical project for us. Educating the next generation of Nigerians is very important for this administration. And then there's also the hydro projects he mentioned, and again, small-scale solar projects that is not necessarily rural. It is also in urban centers. So we really see ourselves as an access agency.
With ailing transmission infrastructure unable to evacuate available gas-generated power to distributors and insufficient metering in urban centers, renewable and off-grid energy sources remain the fastest solution to an urgent problem undermining economic recovery. Ajuri Ngilale, Channels Television News.
A high court in Minna, the Niger state capital, has granted bail to a former governor of the state, Babangida Aliyu, and his former chief of staff, Umar Nasco. Both men were last week remanded in Minna medium security prison by the court, pending a decision on their application for bail. They are being prosecuted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for alleged corruption while in office. Justice Aliyu Mayeki asked the former governor to provide two sureties, each of whom will deposit certificates of occupancy of landed property worth 200 million naira with the court. Mr. Nasco was granted bail in the sum of 100 million naira and is to provide two sureties each with landed property worth 150 million naira. The counsel to the second defendant told Channels Television that the bail terms are too harsh for his client. Any herdsmen with plans to rear their cattle in Edo State should be prepared to pay for grazing. Now, this is according to the Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, who says the state cannot be compelled to provide land for free as grazing reserve for herdsmen in the state. Now, Governor Obaseki was speaking when members of the state chapter of the Christian Association of Nigeria visited him at the government house in Benin City, adding that cattle rearing is like any other economic activity that must be paid for.
We just unnecessarily politicize things that should not be. As far as I'm concerned, grazing is an economic activity. I'll go to the local governments who feel they have the opportunity, they have the land, they have the water. Anybody who wants to come and graze and pay, let them come, they will graze, they will pay, and they will go. They will not own. I don't see why I should. Otherwise, I will have a bill for everything. I'll have a bill for poultry. I'll have a bill for, So I don't even see it. So I don't even think it is. We have too many problems ahead of us that we shouldn't worry ourselves about non-issues. It's a non-issue. Anybody who wants to undertake an economic activity, let them come, we'll look at the profitability, and we'll decide on how to do it.
Well, we'll come back on the program News Across Nigeria. We're staying in Edo State, this time to find out how the state government has been embarking on rehabilitation of projects, especially roads. Stay with us.